We appreciate the time, Rob. Thanks for sticking around with us.
Oh, you bet, Steve. My pleasure.
Let's talk about Congressman Edwards. You've spent a lot of time trying to pin him to Nancy Pelosi and to President Obama. In the past year, Chet has voted against House health care. He's voted against cap and trade, which were really a couple of key Democratic plans over the past year. Do you believe that shows an independent streak for him? Are those insignificant in the grand scheme of things? How would you characterize those votes?
I would characterize those votes as trying to save his seat. As a result of the race last election cycle, he barely squeaks it out in spite of the fact he wins barely by 4.5%, in spite of the fact that he outspent me by $2 million. But what he's trying to do now is he realizes that the folks in this district don't like the way he's been voting on the key issues. So nobody's fooled by the votes that he took in these two particular items that you're talking about, cap and trade and the health care. He waited till literally the last minute. They counted the votes in Washington, and then he was freed by the party leadership, Nancy Pelosi, to vote against the bills, knowing that if he voted for them, it was just going to bury him even deeper in Central Texas, because most Central Texans are absolutely opposed to the two bills we're talking about. They don't want the federal government taking charge of their health care and taking over their health care, and they certainly don't like the scheme of cap and trade. And both of these are cases where Edwards waited till literally the last second and then decided, well, okay, I can get away with voting against them, and that's what he did. He had no firm stances on any of them. We held town hall meetings, forcing him to hold town hall meetings earlier this year on the health care, and he couldn't make a decision. He couldn't take a stand until literally the last minute, and then it was then that he decided, well, it wasn't best for everybody. But I think most voters in this district saw through that and realized it was just a real political vote.
If you could overturn a vote that the congressman has made in his time representing District 17, what would it be and why?
Oh, there's a number of things. Probably a lot. The number one issue in my mind came up about 2 years ago. A little over 2 years ago now. It was the vote to pull the troops out of Iraq and pull them out in defeat. And I just really had a problem with that. When you've got our guys that are out there fighting and dying in a war, you don't pull them out, pull the rug out from under them, and bring them back in defeat because you're trying to make political points with Nancy Pelosi. And excuse me, I went at Chet Edwards on that during the campaign. That to me is just something that I could not agree with, or I disagree with that so strongly. You support our troops. You may disagree with whether or not we should have been in Iraq, but the bottom line is, while our guys are there, you do everything you can to support them to victory. Once they're brought home victorious, then we can discuss whether or not they should have been there. But the bottom line is he voted to cut off the funding, and if Bush hadn't vetoed the bill, our troops would have been there for virtually no reason, dying for no reason, and we wouldn't have accomplished what they did accomplish after the troop surge and everything else. That and probably some of his votes to keep partial birth abortion legal, those are votes that I would definitely like to see overturned. I mean, there's just so many of them over the years, but those are some of the more egregious votes that I see.
If you were to go to Washington, what's the first piece of legislation you'd think you would work on or introduce?
Well, the first thing I'd like to get involved with is, of course, taxes. We've got to overhaul the tax code if we can, and that's a very difficult thing, and that's a big thing to try and swallow. But I think it's time that we started lowering our taxes, making it more business-friendly so that we can create jobs. I'm a small business owner in Waco, and I can tell you if the government would make things a little easier with us with taxes and all the regulations and everything that all small business owners have to go through, some more than others, of course, that's what creates the jobs in the country. That's what's going to get the economic engine going again. Keep the Bush tax cuts permanent, and work along the lines of eliminating capital gains taxes and other things such as that, and that's what's going to stimulate the economy, and that in turn will help create jobs and get people that need to get back to work. So mine are along the lines of the economy. I want to get the economy going again. I certainly want to look at overhauling the tax code. There's just another number of things I would like to work to repeal and restore. Some of the damage that's being done by the current Congress with President Obama's leadership, like cap and trade. I'd like to get the government out of the banking and auto industries. I don't think they belong there. So there's just a number of things that I would work on. And as a freshman, what I would try to do is work with other conservative congressmen around our district, which there are several. You know, you got Sam Johnson, Pete Sessions, Jeb Henserling, the list goes on. You work with those gentlemen, you get numbers up with other conservatives that are trying to do the same things that we are, and by getting with those folks, you increase your numbers, you increase your clout up in Washington, and then you can start to move forward with the conservative agenda, which is what I'm all about. I'm not interested in this because I need a new job, a new career, or an adventure. I'm in it because I'm literally looking to get conservative values back into the mainstream of America, and certainly Central Texas values.
Do you believe the terror attacks on American soil are inevitable?
No, I do not, and that's one of the reasons I agreed with the Bush doctrine of taking the fight to the terrorists where they are. Don't wait for them to attack, and that's one of the differences I have with the other side of the aisle. The mentality that, well, this is a crime. Terrorism is more of a crime issue, which means you're always going to be reacting. I would rather be proactive. Now, obviously, we don't go all over the world searching for places to attack, but what we do is we find out where terrorism activity is being incubated, and then we go after that and try to cut it off at the source. We certainly would rather be fighting battles against terrorism overseas than here in the homeland of America. So from my perspective, we can prevent it, and I think the Bush administration did a really good job throughout their tenure. I don't agree with everything that President Bush did, but one thing he did do was, for the most part, he kept America safe, and I really appreciate that, and I think most Americans do as well.
How do you think you could do a better job in Congress than Congressman Edwards when it comes to veterans issues?
Well, veterans issues are very near and dear to me. My father spent his entire career working at a veterans hospital, VA hospital. He's a World War II veteran. He's 88 years old. I grew up in a household where veterans issues and veterans values were just there at the dinner table every day. I don't quibble with the good things that have been done for veterans in this district. I've never criticized Edwards for that. I think we have to give the veterans everything they are due and were promised. That's a contract that we have with them, and we just appreciate everything they've done, because if it wasn't for those veterans, I wouldn't even have the freedom to be running for this office. And that, to me, is the thing that we can never lose sight of. So I would be working as hard as I could to make sure every veteran got every benefit due them, and the system is made easier for them to deal with, especially in the VA hospital situation. It can get so complicated, and it's so much red tape. The one thing I've heard over and over again from people is it needs to be streamlined. It needs to be a little easier for them to work with. So I would go along those lines. I'd certainly try to get all the legitimate funding for the veterans that they are due, and work with those that are trying to push veterans issue. But the key difference between myself and Edwards is not only do I want to take care of the veterans, but I'm looking out for the lives of the troops that are on active duty and that are fighting the war and terror for us. And as long as they're out in the field fighting, I will do everything in my power to support them and do everything we can to make sure they are victorious. And then, only then, will America be safe from terrorist attacks. So we've got to fight the war on terror. We've got to keep our military strong, and we've got to fulfill our promises to all our veterans.